obviously, I had that speech. What did I just say? We apologize for being tardy. Thank you for waiting, and we'll try to be expeditious with the time the rest of the way. So the first thing on the agenda is a joint Town Council and Audit Committee meeting, and this is September 2nd. It is now called to order. Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead us in the interest of time. Okay, this is the Audit Committee Town Council discussion, possible Town Council acceptance of the audit findings from the special audit of the 3 utility funds related to billing and revenues. Sherry.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Council had asked for us to have the auditors do a special audit of the utilities related to the billing and revenues. And we looked at 3 years. We have the auditors here to present the report. And then after presentation, any questions we do have on the agenda, asking council to accept the report. We have Dennis Maschke, who is the partner in charge of our audit here, and we have Richard Gillespie, who is the senior manager on our job. And so I'm going to turn it over to them to discuss the audit.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. We want to present the results of our audit procedures. We did some consulting type procedures to analyze these utility funds because it was our understanding and going through the analysis that the estimated revenues were significantly higher than what the actual revenues that came in for the previous 3 fiscal years. So we broke that down into 2 pieces of the procedures that we did. One is through the internal control assessment, and that's where we're looking at the controls, the operations of, when a cash receipt comes in, how this gets collected and the money's into the bank and ultimately gets recorded to the general ledger. And the second thing that we did is we estimated or re-estimated how those numbers should have been evaluated. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the internal control process. What we did is we looked at 3 fiscal years, 23, 24, and 25, and we performed internal control assessment procedures like we would during an audit process, where we were looking at the billings, recalculating customer billings, making sure the receipts that came in were ultimately recorded in the bank and then recorded within the general ledger. And so in total, we selected 75 transactions. And within that sample, that population, we didn't see any internal control deficiencies. We would designate that. We would call them significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. We did not note any of those breakdowns in internal controls. And all of the recalculated billings matched. So we were able to recalculate the usage and then the rates to recalculate what was being posted to that customer account, as well as then what got posted into the bank and within the general ledger. And so the second piece to that is to kind of understand or try to recalculate what we believe that estimated revenue should have been, and to kind of show you what those variances were, so we can see maybe how that threw off the estimated revenue compared to the actual amounts. And I'll let Richard kind of go through that process.
Yes, for the second piece of ARMBR procedures, we analyzed the estimated revenues of the town. So it would have been for the fiscal year 23 budget year through the fiscal year 25. And with the estimated revenues, obviously you go up to a certain point for that next budget year. So to start, we'll kind of go over just the key factors and takeaways, and then we'll kind of dig into the analysis. For the fiscal year 2023 budget, or analyzing the fiscal year 2022 estimated revenues, there was no rate changes during the fiscal year 2022, so it was a little more straightforward to predict. And then however, we recalculated the town's estimate with significant variances. As I said, we'll get into the variances on the next couple slides. And then for the fiscal year 2024 budget, or the fiscal year 2023 estimated revenues, there were rate changes beginning January 1st, 2023. That included for the Cave Creek water, a slight increase in the base, and then as well as minimal volume change in the rates. And then the Desert Hills water, there was a significant 26% base increase, and then roughly about a 9% volume increase as well. And then wastewater was the largest base increase of 51.39%. And then large varying flow rate increases on top of that. So these are just kind of factors we use whenever we kind of went in and kind of recalculated those estimated revenues on our side. And we also, for that estimated revenue year, we recalculated the town's estimate with significant variances as well. Lastly, the fiscal year 2025 budget or the fiscal year 2024 estimated revenues. The rate changes started January 1st, 2024. This year, I think this is the year you all kind of caught up with based on the rate study. And so there are slight more, between 2 to 5% rate increases across all the systems of the town. And then during our recalculation, we estimated with significant variances as well. So one thing to note before we go into kind of the details is the effect on the general fund subsidies. So the overestimate of revenues did not result in an equivalent amount of general fund subsidies. The overestimate does not represent the amount of subsidies since the expenditures of these funds were still under budget. All right, so here's kind of our summary of our analysis. I know there's a lot of data here, so I'll kind of go through each column and kind of represent what it is and, to where it's a little easier to see. So this first column is the budget fiscal year. So you'll see 23 through 25, and then the estimated revenues fiscal year, which would be fiscal year 2020 through 24. So like I said earlier, obviously you're going to use that prior year fiscal year actuals through a certain date and then kind of estimate to determine the budget. So and so this next column, which would be column 1, is the estimated revenues per the budget. This is the detailed line item budget approved by the town. So that column represents basically the revenues, estimated revenues per that budget within that fiscal year. The next column represents the estimated revenues recalculated by us. And then this column 3 represents the prior year actual per the trial balance. So this was actually the actual revenues ended up being recorded by the town for each of these fiscal years. And so these last 3 columns represents the variances during our analysis. This column here represents the variance between the town estimate as well as the actual. So you'll see pretty large increases or large variances within here. And these show that the town's estimated revenues was more than what was actual. And then this column here, the column 2 minus 3, would be the variance between auditor estimate and actual. So whenever we were determining the estimate for our side, it's kind of noted below. So obviously it's easy to estimate revenues in retrospect. So what we did within the budget, it always would say, hey, these are the actuals through January or February or March. So we would use that data that was used to prepare these estimated revenues within the budget. So basically, as of that point in time, whenever the budget was being prepared, we used that data to be able to estimate based on our factors that normally we would see. So you'll see the variance here, a lot less, a little more conservative based on our side. And then this final column represents the variance between the town estimate and the auditor estimate. So you'll see large estimates here or large variances here between what we've estimated and what the town estimated. And sorry, I should kind of circle it. So this was for the Cave Creek water system. And it's very similar through the other 3, but we'll go in a little more detail on the other 2 systems. So this next one is the Desert Hills water system. So as I noted earlier, you'll see the budget fiscal year, estimated revenues fiscal year, estimated revenues per budget, estimated revenues recalculated by auditor, and then the prior year actual trial balance. So you'll see this column, which is columns 1 minus 3, which is the variance between the town estimate and actual. You'll see a lot of large variances for the Desert Hills water system as well, very similar to the Cave Creek water system. And then over here where we used the information at the time of preparing the budget to determine our estimate, a lot smaller variances. And once again, for the most part, I'm a lot more conservative. So, and then the final column, as we've mentioned, includes the variance between the town's estimate and our estimate. So very large variances there. Then finally, we'll get to the wastewater, which wastewater is a little more predictable because it's not so much volume based. It's really more just it was a little more predictable. So, similar columns. So variances here between the town estimate and actual really aren't that bad in comparison to the other systems. However, in our calculation, you'll see little lower, a little more conservative on our side as far as estimated revenues for the wastewater. And then final column would be the variance between the town estimate and the auditor estimate. So kind of identified errors whenever we went into digging into the estimated revenues. So for the fiscal year 2022 estimated revenues, which would have been for the fiscal year 2023 budget, the budget didn't include the actual revenues through a specific date, so it's very tough to determine. As I mentioned earlier, usually it'd be estimated revenues through January or February of that fiscal year to determine the budget for that next fiscal year, and there was no specified date within there. So all we did is we kind of went through, like, I think February, March, to determine, okay, hey, what's roughly what the town would have used during that time. So anyway, so we went through kind of similar to the other fiscal years. We just kind of had to guesstimate, okay, they went through probably March. And so whenever we did go through, we recalculated the estimate. It ended up being 10% less than what was reported as estimated revenues. And this year was the significant because the rate study that was done years ago actually had used the fiscal year 2022 estimated revenues within there to determine what these rate increases will be in the future. So really with that being kind of overestimated that fiscal year, and then within the rate, using that amount within the rate study, that's kind of what triggered overestimated revenues through those next fiscal years. Rather than being kind of conservative with the rate increase, it was really more kind of they expected a lot more revenues than you all actually got. And as Dennis mentioned earlier, we test the controls and everything, and really the way the town's recording actual revenues, there's really no issue there. So going to the next fiscal year, so fiscal year 2023 estimated revenues, the town's calculation for estimated revenues in fiscal year 2023, they actually doubled the actuals as of January 31st, 2023. So rather than kind of taking those revenues through that January time period and kind of doing their own estimate to where, kind of estimating for the rest of the fiscal year, they basically just doubled that. So basically they kind of assumed, hey, it's December, and they basically doubled the revenues to get to their estimate within that budget. And so essentially they calculate for 14 months rather than 12 months for that year. So, and also, I forget if that's on a slide or not, but there was a lot of turnover during these fiscal years within the finance director position. So that's one of the reasons why it's really tough to kind of tell like each fiscal year, because there's a lot of different methods used through all of these fiscal years. Lastly, for the fiscal year 2023 estimated revenues, the town's fiscal year 2024 adopted budget utilized erroneously calculated fiscal year 2023 estimated revenues, factoring in a % increase based on the fee schedule. So basically they use that prior year estimated to create that next year's budgeted revenues, and really that previous year was overestimated. That's kind of what caused that fiscal year 2023 estimated revenues to be a lot more. And then finally, for the fiscal year 2024 estimated revenues, within the fiscal year 2025 budget, the town's estimated revenues for fiscal year 2024 mirrored the fiscal year 2024 adopted budget amounts. However, the fiscal year 2024 adopted budget was erroneously inflated as mentioned above. So basically the summary kind of will take all those key factors in the last 3 points, kind of just roll with it, is the error calculated within the fiscal year 2023 estimated revenues resulted in a residual effect on the following. So the fiscal year 2023 inflation of estimated revenues. And then on top of that, than the fiscal year 2024 inflation of the adopted budget. And then finally resulted in the fiscal year 2024 inflation of estimated revenue. So really kind of that fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2023 overestimate kind of just triggered this overestimate of the subsequent fiscal years. All right, and that concludes our presentation of those specific procedures. I'll open it up to questions.
So we, for fiscal year 24, roughly for the utilities, we overestimated revenue by $1 million, correct?
Roughly, yes.
Other questions from council?
Is it safe to say that these were paper errors rather than anything tangible, money?
Yes. So as we mentioned, so part of it was evaluating the internal controls over collecting, basically recording, billings, collections, and recording within the general ledger, and we found no issues with that. So the actuals, everything was good. Is really just more. I think the big thing, it was probably with turnover within the finance director position and a lot of inconsistencies within preparation of those budget amounts. And it kind of just started with that fiscal year 2022 and kind of I'm guessing whoever came in as a finance director might have used those prior year amounts and then kind of just, kind of ripple effect after that. But as far as actual amounts recorded by the town, as far as revenues, those are all accurate. We didn't find any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies within those procedures. So,
Yeah, and just to be specific, in your report, since November 2020, there have been 4 different finance directors.
yes.
So within a 5-year period, and several acting finance directors. Hence, easy to make mistakes.
And that's why we kind of wanted to ensure that, the subsidies, the general fund subsidies, that wasn't affected by this overinflation. It's really just more the budgeted revenues were a lot higher and the town wasn't quite meeting it. But as far as the expenditure side and actual revenue side, those are accurate numbers. It's really just more the estimated within the budget process was just being calculated, little inflated. So.
More questions? Okay, I'd like to hear from the town staff. We could have a couple questions for them.
Yes, Mayor.
Well, first of all, it's good that there's no actual dollars. This is just a procedural thing, but it's management decision-making that we need to know how much money we expect to come in, how much comes in, and identify discrepancies from such. Why have you concluded why this was not caught earlier? What is it about our reports that this just didn't scream problem?
I'm not sure, because when the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, is done and the budgetary comparisons show there were variances there. They were clearly reported, but why they weren't brought up or discussed, I really don't know.
Are you confident that our processes have been fixed to the extent that with experienced personnel, of course, the personnel issues are not included in that. Are our processes robust enough now that we can count this as a problem? The overestimation is a problem that is now behind us.
Yeah, so I'm actually the one who had brought up some of these things because this is the experience that I come from. My entire career has been around governmental accounting, auditing, consulting. I have not been in other industries. This is the industry that I know. I would be kind of scared to go to some other industry and go, I don't know this. So I have a few decades of experience in this and know what to look for. I also did, so when I prepared the estimates, when we were working on the fiscal year 26 budget, I did provide those to the auditors to say, do you have any comments about the approach that I took on that? And if you want to hear straight from them.
Yeah, actually forgot. That was supposed to be something I was supposed to talk about. So we did kind of analyze her fiscal year 2025 estimated revenues in preparation of the fiscal year 26 budget. And it was very similar, just more detail from what we were using to produce our auditor estimated amount. So we went and kind of reviewed hers and everything pretty much was in line with what we would expect, within whenever you're preparing a budget. So.
Okay. Any questions? Other questions from council? Dusty.
So this is going to be corrected next time we do this?
Yes, so the estimates prepared for the fiscal year 26 budget, which I would expect those to be a lot closer to what the actuals will be when we get
Yeah,
through that
and
fiscal year.
You never know how much water people are going to use, how much sewer. I get it.
Exactly. It's never going to be exact. And what was prepared for the fiscal year 26 budget is what I had provided to the consultants who are working on the rate study that is currently in process, so that they're starting from better estimates to go forward.
Thanks.
Down here? Okay, so we're in the position of accepting this, is that correct?
Correct. And I think we did this as a joint meeting, that they're accepting it as the council. Okay.
Okay, so I'll just make a motion then that we accept the audit findings from the special audit of the 3 utility funds for both the audit committee and the council related to billing and revenues.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Issue closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
And again, I'm sorry about keeping you waiting. Okay, we have motion to adjourn the audit committee, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So I call to order the town council meeting of September 2nd, 2025. Public announcements. One thing I want to point out is we have a distinguished visitor at the next council meeting, and that is the president of the Central Arizona Project. Water is probably one of the biggest topics in the state right now, and he will be here to speak to us about what's going on with CAP. And I want to just say that CAP, I think, has been extraordinarily proactive, and it should be a very, very interesting talk. I hope a lot of people can make that. Other public announcements? Okay, then we'll go to call to the public.
Carol Perry.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, thank you so much for your ongoing support of Hidden in the Hills. This is a little premature, I guess is the word, but when you are literally the first people to see that the map has been printed, and this is very specifically one of the things that your grant funds. So the directory is still a month away, but this is the map. And I just wanted to point out that it now says inside the map and on the very back of the directory, sponsored by the town of Cave Creek. We cannot thank you enough for your ongoing support. And I put a stack of these over there somewhere. So if you want one of these before you get the directory, and as soon as I have them, I'll get them to you. So thank you from the bottom of a whole lot of people's hearts.
Thank you, Carol.
No additional.
No further ones? Okay, we're at the town manager report.
Mayor, Council, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
We can.
Super. Just wanted to report back. Not everybody uses all of our different communication tools, but wanted to report that over the weekend, there were 2 wells in the Desert Hills service area that failed. Staff initiated some emergency protocols to investigate the cause and have a well company come in and evaluate the wells. The utilities department also brought water resources from the Cave Creek water system to try to fill up water reservoirs so that we could try to assure that there were no outages or issues there. We initially were having difficulty with filling up the water reservoirs, but we were able to catch up on that. Staff communicated through various means to let our customers know about the situation and to alert them to the possibility of water pressure dropping. And the town also urged customers to conserve water while the wells are being serviced. The town will continue to provide updates to our customers as needed until the situation is resolved. So just wanted to highlight that. I think that really affected a number of people, and want to make sure that our customers, both Cave Creek and Desert Hills, which were both impacted. So that's all I have, Mayor and Council, at this time.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Dusty, go ahead.
Do we have an estimated time when at least one of the wells will be back online?
I will try to get that information. They were working on it, and I've been told I can't have Sean come up and give that to you, but maybe Sean, if you can give me that information, I can report it this evening. Okay. So with that, Sean will just go ahead and email me, and I'll make sure I have that information for you. So with that, we'll go ahead and Mayor, Council will move on to the rest of the agenda.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is proclamation for 2025 Falls Prevention Awareness Week, whereas it is estimated that 1/4 of people 65 and older will experience a fall each year, and whereas falls are the leading cause of both fatal and non-fatal injuries among older adults in Arizona and the United States. Whereas falls continue to be the leading cause of injury-related hospitalizations, emergency department visits, deaths among those Arizonans 65 and older with over 26,000 fall injuries, 84% of total injuries for this age group, with 524 deaths as reported by the Arizona Department of Health Services in 2023. Whereas fall-related incidents account for 16 to 20% of all EMS medical calls for service in the Cave Creek, Arizona in fiscal year 24-25, whereas falls can lead to loss of mobility, loss of functional independence, depression, and dependency. But injuries from falls are largely a preventable community health problem and are not an inevitable result of aging. Whereas evidence-based programs reduce fall risk by utilizing cost-effective strategies such as exercise programs to improve balance and strength, everyday strategies to improve mobility and stability, reduction of
Household hazards.
household hazards. How do you know that? I can just, it's a bunch of letters on mine. I, Robert Morris, Mayor of Cave Creek, Arizona, do hereby proclaim September 22 to 26, 2025 as Falls Prevention Awareness Week in Cave Creek, Arizona, and urge our citizens, family members, caregivers, and community-based organizations to promote falls and prevention awareness and action. So 22nd to the 26th, Falls Prevention Week. Action items. We now have a consent agenda. I think you wanted to pull something off, Tom?
Yes, the first item on the consent agenda regarding the authorization appointment of the audit committee. I think that should be pulled off so that the public knows what's happening.
Okay, we will pull that off. And the remaining numbers, that would be numbers 2 through 5. Do you have a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, so I get someone from staff to explain this to us.
Thank you, Mayor. So what we have here, so the audit committee, this was kind of one of the things that I had brought up, and there was agreement with council that it really does not really needed. Because I brought it up because I wasn't seeing any distinction between the audit committee and the council and the role that the audit committee was handling. It was things that is really duplicative of what the council can do and is required to do. So some of the audit presentations are statutorily required to be presented to council, not an audit committee. The entire body of the town council was making up the audit committee. So it really was no distinction between an audit committee body and the town council body. So a lot of things were being redundantly done in past years. They would do a presentation to the audit committee and then later do it to the town council. More recent years, it's been changed of like, okay, let's do it as a joint meeting. But I didn't really see that there was value being added in calling it an audit committee. So that was part of why I brought it up as something to look at as why are we doing this?
Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have questions?
So just to clarify, then the council will continue to act in its role as an audit committee anytime that would be necessary.
It would act in its role as a town council, doing things the town council has every right
Including
to
audit.
do, including audit.
Thank you.
Without an audit committee.
Being one of the prime movers between all this audit stuff we're hearing the last few days, I'm comparing the audit in years past, not currently, but in the years I've been watching the town since 2013. And there is a decided difference between the approach on audits in private business and in government. And the government, it's a far more confrontational, very carefully keeping, because it is an audit of the management of the town, financial management of the town. And I'm very eager and was and continue to be in making sure that we have a clear difference between the auditors and the town staff. So it is an audit of that performance and a financial audit. You hear all the time about things happening that auditors find all across the country in all kinds in businesses and private, public, you name it. And so we want to make sure that the citizens of the town have confidence that we are doing a good job and an honest job with the funds that we're entrusted with. On that,
Thank you.
yeah. So you want to make the motion? Are you satisfied?
Yes, I move to approve this item on the consent on the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, the general agenda is council discussion, possible approval of a professional service contract with Zimmerman Architect for the purposes of developing plans and construction drawings for the renovation and expansion of Cave Creek Town Hall.
Lisa, that's very nice of you. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Trust you all had a pleasant summer. Where is it on here? Let's see if we can. The PowerPoint? Hold, please. Usually good on my toes, but I only have 5 of them working right now, so.
This is
Just a
where
second.
Ian Cordwell always had something.
Right,
Yeah,
yes.
we miss Ian. No pressure. Nice to see
You
so
can
many
grab it.
people here this evening.
Why don't you give us a verbal
Oh,
background?
yeah,
while
I
working on it?
apologize. So just a little bit of background on this item. Back in 2023 at the Town Council and Senior Staff Retreat, as part of that strategic plan preparation, the council identified under infrastructure a town hall project, and they directed staff to evaluate options for redesign and redevelopment of town hall. Through the end of 2023 and into 2024, the town staff engaged with Greg Zimmerman Architect, has a long history with working with the town, has done a few interior remodels of town hall over the years, and the courtroom here. So he's very familiar with the property, the layout. We asked him to conduct a space plan to look at our existing capacity, our staffing needs, any discrepancies or shortcomings that we have. One example that we've identified is meeting rooms, smaller conference rooms, on-site storage. We have a lot of things kept off-site in storage currently. So all of those things were done. We also asked that he, as part of that, looking at the existing footprint, also evaluate options for an expansion of town hall. The three different opportunities that we asked him to evaluate We're expanding the building out towards the town council chambers, adding a second story to the existing town hall, or going out south of town hall with a new building addition. Last year, council, or earlier this year, I should say, council approved the purchase of the WooCash parcel, which is the vacant lot directly south of town hall. It's 0.7 acres. We made the town approved the down payment of that, and then also in its fiscal budget, approved the remaining balance to be paid in July 1st. So we are now the proud owners of 0.7 acres south of town hall, which makes this project even more readily available to us to expand south, because now we own that property. We'd been leasing it for upwards of almost 20 years at $1,200 a month. So buying that parcel and having it as part of this town hall complex gives us a lot of options, not just in expansion of the town hall facility to accommodate staff and the public, but also more flexibility in parking and other things.
Some technical difficulties.
Physical issues. So once again, council has approved the CIP, which included the WooCash parcel, and also to provide funding for the completion of construction drawings and finalizing plans for a remodel and expansion in this year's budget. The council put $500,000 in that line item for the budget. The price for this phase of the project, which is full construction designs and plans, utilizing a design build model for execution, is the proposed budget amount is, find it here. It's all on the slideshow, trust me. $138,259 will execute plans, drawings, and it also leverages the architect and his staff to help with the scope and solicitation of contractors, and also gets them a seat at the table to make sure that everything we're getting when we go to bid is realistic. So it'll include the engineer cost estimates for everything. So that takes us really into, well, there you go. There it is, everybody. I tried to summarize as best I could. See where we're at. So like I said, we've got a working draft of a space layout, which is pictured on the right there. It shows the town hall is the long ways left to right. That's the existing footprint, and the new addition would extend south and perpendicular to that. And really what we were looking at in the space layout were staff adjacencies, public service efficiencies. You'll see in the top right of the existing town hall footprint is a one-stop shop customer service counter with public restrooms, a meeting office off of that. And then as you move left is where you get into the staffing and the adjacencies that we're discussing, which is development services, the engineering, utilities. And then the new addition to that building would be really the concentration of administrative services such as finance, town clerk, HR, those types of departments will occupy those. And then also a town council office for, town council members to be able to meet with constituents after hours and things like that. So, a really good design that incorporates, like I said, public service efficiencies, and then considers current deficiencies such as increased on-site storage, dedicated meeting room space, as well as adaptable office space where staffing changes can be easily absorbed. So the last 5 years, I can say we've had a lot of staffing changes in different roles and new positions and things. And what this design does is allow us to readily accommodate any changes in staffing due to market conditions or otherwise. Then, like I said, town staff has been included to review and make suggestions to further refine the design. This design that you see on the board was actually brought to council at its retreat earlier this year. And at that point, we decided to move ahead to this stage to have this architect continue to work with us and prepare those construction design drawings that we can in the future go out to bid. Go to the next slide here.
So this includes construction design, a bid package to actually go out to bid for this?
Yeah, this will be complete plan drawings that we can go out to bid and get pricing from.
It's
a very good deal.
it's a very good deal.
Right, considering that what we budgeted, what we thought it might come in at, and what this entails. So the scope of services is included in your packet so that you can verify that everything that the architect is in line to do and provide for the town. And then the last thing, which would be something that we would bring back to council at a later date, should we decide to get that far, would be an add-on, which is, I believe he identifies as phase 5, which would be during the construction phase, he would be on call to monitor the progress of construction and answer questions and give direction to the contractor, kind of act as an intermediary between the town, us, the client, and the contractor that ultimately is selected by council to perform the work.
All right, so staff is recommending approval of the professional services contract. Sorry. So staff is recommending approval of the contract with Zimmerman Architect, GM Zimmerman Architect. Our next steps would be, if we move forward with this, is to bring back at our next council retreat the renderings and provide those to council for review and feedback. We would also at that time have a cost estimate. And then depending on council's feedback at that point, our goal would be, if we were to move forward, include it in the budget, the next fiscal year budget. And if that passes and is approved, then begin construction as close to July 1 as possible. So we would actually, after the retreat, if everything is still in process to move forward, we would then put bids out, or the RFP out for bids.
Do we have a cost estimate on what the total cost would be for?
We do not
Everything?
yet. That we would be bringing that back to the retreat. So once we get closer and these renderings are done, and we'll also have architectural examples that we'll bring forward, but we're going to have an estimate, a closer estimate at that point.
Question from council, Tom?
Thanks. Can I ask a couple of ancillary questions? So in the sheriff's annex, do we know when that space may be vacated?
We do not have a time estimate on that, and I don't think it'll be.
If I may, Councilmember Augerton, this is Grady. Just want to let you know that they do not have a project per se that's budgeted. And so I would tell you probably we're estimating at least 5 years out at the earliest, because they don't even have a project right now identified.
Okay. And Mr. Mayor, Grady, can I ask, what's the square footage that would be available in this building after they vacate, just roughly?
Do you remember, was it 3,500 square feet or 4,000? I'm just not recalling. Luke or Teresa?
What percentage the council floor plan takes of the entire building? Are we a half of the building in the council chambers?
No, this room is less than a third of the footprint.
Okay, that gives me.
So council member, we are looking at the possibility of reuse of that would benefit the community.
Yeah.
But at this point, it looks like they're locked into it, which in a way it's kind of to our advantage for us to have MCSO reporting from that location.
Right. No, it just seems like, especially the timing after this other project is considered, that you've got literally growth opportunities in the future. And you might be able to do something with public meeting space and so forth.
Absolutely.
In the floor plan we're looking there, I have to ask this question because I've never been able to get an answer. How many employees is that floor plan for in the town of Cape Creek? How many FTEs are you preparing that space for?
Luke, or Teresa, do you have the number? We have
Right.
a lot of flexible space that's been purposely designed. As you saw in the one, can you go back so they can see the floor plans? So, one of the issues that we have is we don't have a very efficient way. We're compartmentalized. And so we have a lot of people that come in and try to come into the one end of the building and then they go to the other end of the building to handle like water utilities and things like that. We're looking at having a one-stop shop customer service counter where building safety and plan review and utilities are going to be there. I know when we reported back to the council at the retreat, we had a number, and I'm just really sorry I don't have that number off the top of my head. But I do know, council member, we had I don't recall who it was, but there was a council member that asked, you know, did we have growth built into this so we would not be facing this issue? And my response was yes, and I believe we have, based on the small number of staff that we have about at least 20 years or more, because we do have some areas that some of the space can be flexibly changed out, but we're trying to keep what we have proposed intact, and we believe we have many, many years of being able to keep it as you see right before you tonight.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, just counting the fixed door offices, and then the cubicle spaces, and what we were really trying to do with the cubicle spaces was create more opportunities for transient workers, field, people that work in the field and come back. But I'm counting approximately 40 altogether. But once again, the workspaces in the middle of kind of the two bigger areas that are shown as cubicle spaces can be flexed and adapted into anything with some fixed walls. So.
And then if I can, just one last follow-up question. The employees that are now over at the food bank and so forth, would they stay where they're at? Or do you hope to consolidate everybody in the future, or?
No, they would stay where they're at because they are more involved with the wastewater treatment, and then the field work that goes off there, their yards off of there for all the field crew. But there are a few employees that are more in a transient capacity that would split time between that office and town hall.
And how
as
many
well.
FTEs do we have out there at that location?
That I do not.
6.
Somewhere thereabouts.
The utilities has the majority of our employees. I just don't have the number at my fingertips.
Very good.
15.
Okay, thanks.
So, Cynthia,
Are there any design elements that would enhance security for the building?
Less doors, less windows than
Okay.
what's there now.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Enhance security.
Yeah, so right now, if you're, we're in a very old retrofitted strip mall, essentially. I think it was 4 separate businesses at one point. So there's a front door, back door, front door, back door, all the way down the front and back of the building. So what this design would do is make a lot of those doors obsolete and be bricked in and whatnot. The other thing, if you look at the front of the town hall now, as it is currently, it's basically a wall of windows and doors. So all of that would be going away in this design. So from a security standpoint, it will be a lot more secure as multiple unnecessary points of ingress and egress are being eliminated.
Thank you.
And we will be bringing architectural design options to council, so.
No, I'll, after the motion is made, I'll have a comment.
No, it looks like you have 6 entry points into the building. I'm just counting.
Yeah, that's a lot less than we currently.
Yeah, right now you have what, 20?
Less than, yeah, well, far less than half.
I just one comment. I worked in a government building for 20 years and it underwent a major renovation, which made it much more pleasant for employees. And I think that's an important comment here because this workspace is awful. It's old. The HVAC is terrible. They crammed new people into closets without any windows, it's really unacceptable for today's workforce. And I think it's mandatory that we do something to improve the environment for our employees if we value them and if we want to continue to recruit professional and technical employees here. Because it's really, it needs work, it needs improvement, just for the health and safety of our employees.
Okay, so we'll have a period for comments after we make the motion. If there are any further questions on what we're seeing here today, then we'll look for a motion then. to approve it.
This is a motion to approve a professional services contract with Zimmerman Architect for the purposes of developing plans and construction drawings for the renovation and expansion of Cave Creek Town Hall.
Second? I second.
Yeah.
Okay, I had the second on here. Oops. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, you had, your comments are first. I'm sorry. What? Oh, thank you. Public comment.
Hi, David Phelps.
How did I miss that? Thank you.
Hello, council members. David Phelps here, Cave Creek resident. Appreciate the comments from the council. I did see this back at the council retreat and I think it's been a oddity that this plan is being shown here tonight for the first time, but the train's leaving the station. So now any input you get from your constituents, the people at the top of your org chart, are going to be not so much. I really think that we should focus on using the space that the sheriffs are going to be leaving. I know we don't know any more today than we did a couple of months ago when we talked about it in a council meeting having to do with the budget, but they are building a new regional facility, was my understanding of it. And I really think for the cost of building new, that at one point in time, there was approximately a $6 million price tag on the rework and the addition and the parking lot and the electric gates, the security gates for the town staff. And I think it's just getting a little bit too much. I think the people that you employed to do the space study came up with the answer that town staff needed to provide to you to say that we need more space. I think that what we really have is a utilization study that's needed. Town hall is empty at least 3 days a week. That's the difference between the town hall and the fire station. The fire station that we just spent about $5 million on is used 24/7, 365. There you can quantify and realistically say, this is a good value. What we're proposing to do for our staff with the annexation building is a little expensive in my book. And I would say that you would be better off doing the remodel of the existing building and taking some of the uses that you have proposed for the new remodel, excuse me, and storing them outside if need be, and air conditioning and heating them. I know that we're going through a revitalization with our files where we're internally, we're creating the documents on zips instead of zip files instead of paper files. Well, if we're doing all this electronic recording, we're not going to need the file space room that's on that plan. But the main thing is we've got a building that's already built. The roof's there, the walls are there, not so many windows, not so many entrances right across the hall here. I will bet you there's bathrooms in there. I'm out of time, but I would ask you all before you vote on this, how long would you like to know that's going to be built for about $6-7 million before you feel right about the council voting on it? I think it's rushed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There were no additional speaker cards.
That's it. Okay. So that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
I made the motion. I've had the honor of working with this staff for many years. I think the comments that were made by the vice mayor were very apt. I think we're going to look back, and when we see the functionality of this new facility, we will look back and say, how did we ever work with the kind of thing we've got? I think this is a great opportunity for much more efficient interfacing with the public and the professional services of the staff. We have a great staff, and we need to give them a concomitant facility. Thank you.
Catherine had most of the comments I had. If you haven't been through that facility over there, it is a mess. People are in offices that are the lowest form of like a warehouse, and the windows and odd spots, no security whatsoever. And we just heard a special audit due to turnover. And in both the workspace and the salaries we pay have got to be competitive to keep the people we want and to attract people when we do have an opening. So I think in order to have a town government that that functions correctly, that you have to have a space that is a workspace that fits. And I don't know of no other workspace that I've been in many government offices recently, and ours is by far the worst. We're not doing what Mesa did, was build a spaceship. If anybody's been to that building, it's pretty amazing. So, and we don't have to proceed $138,000. I'm just absolutely blown away by how inexpensive that is to come up with a bid package for this. And this isn't saying we're going to do it. This is to this is a down payment to see what it is. I'd also like, there are also savings there. I think the town staff, frankly, ought to use more interns, summer students, things like that for special projects. And I think this space can save some money by using less expensive people who can still do some work that we need to have done. So I'm going to be in favor of this. Other comments?
I think what we talked about at the offsite, if I'm remembering from 2 years ago and then from this year, the current building we have is insufficient. The question was, can we wait for the sheriff to vacate? And I think what we all kind of came to consensus on was we probably couldn't wait. And should the sheriff's department finally vacate, it would give us the opportunity to renovate the sheriff's spaces, if I recall the conversation correctly, as some type of community center and things where people could come in and hold meetings. Right now, to do that, you have to go to the library, you have to do a whole bunch of other things. This would allow the opportunity for residents to come over to a community center where we could hold some of the larger meetings. I know some of the times when we meet in here, we have an overflow crowd. Well, that would give us an opportunity to have the bigger audiences and things. So I think that's the gist of the conversation as background, David. My personal feeling is that building is a rat trap and it just needs to be fixed. And whether we expand it or whether we just fix it, I don't really have a preference. I think the 138K is probably money well spent.
Other comments?
Mayor.
Comments? Yes, Cynthia?
I would support the motion. I feel like it's an opportunity to create a good workspace. I know in my own office building, I felt guilty about not having people in there 24 hours a day, but I have no fix for that. So I think same thing with the town staff. If we have a good active staff and they have good productive workspace, we've done our job in providing for that. I think it's an investment. The property will hold its investment, and it does give the town options in the future to be able to sublease space, just like we've done with the sheriff, with other groups, other complementary groups, or provide for other community support. So I think it's an opportunity. There was the opportunity for public comment during our budget process when we allocated funds, not just for the plan and design, but also as a holding space for possible construction.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We had our comments. So all those in favor of this signify by saying aye.
Financial?
It's financial.
We don't do financial anymore. We're
Oh,
on,
that's right.
is that's correct, right?
Yeah, we can do voice vote. We vote.
Voice vote unless there's a negative, then we have to do a roll call. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, we're on to the next.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. Okay. We're on next item, which is council discussion, possible appointment of 7 to 9 residents to serve on an ad hoc task force for the purpose of studying, evaluating, and issuing its findings, recommendations relating to the possible acquisition of 4,000 acres of Arizona State Trust land. And I'm going to give a little, is anybody going to, who's a staff member?
Hi, Mayor, I am, if you don't mind.
Okay, were you going to give an entree into the history here?
Yes, I was going to give some background. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and start with that. So, Mayor and Council, as you're aware, the town's strategic plan has an item on there as a priority to evaluate possible acquisition of lands that are held in state trust. It's approximately 4,000 acres in town. Council has definitely indicated that they have a desire for some preservation. And so staff, just before the summer break, proposed that we go and seek citizen input to go through a process that staff would provide some background information and basically have a group between 7 and 9 individuals that would be appointed by the council. During the summer, we received approximately 19 applications. A number of them, I believe it was 12 that were submitted electronically, and then 7 were submitted in hard copy. So you have a packet in front of you that has all the application information. We kept it purposely simple. And the idea is we'll likely have somewhere between 6 and 8 meetings starting once this the task force is appointed, and we have some structure to the meetings and the topics, and we'll be trying to get this completed by February, and then a report presented back to council in March with the findings and recommendations from the members of the ad hoc task force. You recall that when we talked about this last time, in order for this to be given due consideration by voters, by getting this placed on a ballot in November, it has to be done on an even year. And so we would have to have this all completed and ready to take to council after the report's presented to council in March, in May. And it would be basically language that would appear as a ballot item. So with that, council has the opportunity tonight to go through, and I know a number have gone through and prioritized the listing, and for there to be some nomination of individuals to serve on this ad hoc committee. And one of the decision points is to decide whether it be 7 or 9. My preference initially was 7. We had a couple council members that thought maybe 9 or 11. I think 11's way too many. But the staff and I can go with 9. But 7, in my opinion, would work ideally, just like we have a council that is a 7-member body. So that I'd be happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have regarding the process or the appointments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Grady, I just want to agitate you again with, I think the larger we go with an advisory panel, there are some intrinsic benefits. The trouble with 7 is that 4 determine the outcome, which is the way we're set up statutorily. But I think on advisory committees, you have so many qualified, by definition, applicants for this group that I don't know what the harm would be in 11 or 13 or 15, other than you have to have people attend the meeting and you have to factor in for absences, which can happen with 7 as much as it could 11 or 13.
We're, Councilmember Augerton, you bring up some valid points. I'm just really concerned about when you start, we're gonna be running this and as an open meeting process. So all the meeting notices, agendas, and meeting minutes will all be posted. And and then when you start adding and you have a larger group, because there's a lot of business to get done here, I'm really concerned about having quorum issues and not meeting quorum, in which case we would not be able to have the group meet. So that's why I think if you can have a quorum for 7 would be 4 people. If it's 9, it would be 5. But I think when you start getting into larger numbers, it could be really difficult to hold meetings.
Let me just,
Quorum requirements.
not going to be televised. Then the general public doesn't have an opportunity to see them while they're happening or look at recordings afterwards. And I guess I also want to kind of ask the question, what is the goal or the objective of the committee? If the starting point, and I'm just asking that rhetorically, if the starting point is that we have an opportunity here to preserve 4,005 acres, not unlike the 2,235 acres at Spur Cross, it seems as if, well, everybody would be in favor of land preservation. But of course, the devil's in the details, which is how is it being paid for. But the foundation on this was laid back with Mayor Francia and a group of volunteers who worked at that time. And I almost feel, luckily, that it was yanked back from oblivion because we're running out of timing, even though on the upcoming September agenda, we're going to have the continuation of the agreement with the State Land Department. But without getting into specifics, the changing political nature of Arizona government and an upcoming election next fall for governor, and the national way things are pressuring issues in different direction, it does, to put it irreverently, it does seem like it's last call for alcohol. So if we're all one big happy group that we support land preservation in these 4,005 acres specifically, and then the challenge is how do we pay for it, who pays for it, and how is that structured? I don't know why a party of 7 can do a better job than, since you have so many people who have indicated an interest, I don't know the downside of having an advisory group that is large enough to reflect geographically and those who have been here a long time, those who have been here a short time, and so forth. I understand from a mechanical standpoint that staff has another obligation to do this, but I think if you want a true, honest cross-pollination of people from around the town, each of whom brings a unique perspective, and you've had this much interest, which is more than the town ordinarily gets, I would recommend not limiting it to 7 people. I think you've got a resource opportunity here, and you ought to take advantage of it. If everybody is in support of the outcome, then what's the prime value of the committee? And that is to take a look at what staff's recommendations are and the specific contingencies of finance and paying for it and so forth. 25 years ago, the only way the town was able to get Spur Cross Ranch was to do an immediate 6-week-long incorporation to get 51% of the assessed valuation into the town with the cooperation of Phoenix and the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. So we would not lose preservation to some very large national interests who had money that were opposed to coming into the town that prohibited golf courses and so forth. They wanted to develop in the county. Now, this time the preservation land, once again, is in the town of Cave Creek that has existing restrictions and it has an ongoing lifestyle that it wears on its chest. I just think that, and there'll be opposition like there always is on many things for reasons that appear to be valid to the people opposing. I just would urge the council to keep an open mind with how many volunteers you ask to come in and give their opinion. If you have 7 and you don't have a quorum and we lose a meeting, I don't see that as a plus. If you have 9, 11, 13, 15, you've actually picked up the majority of the people who have applied to be considered for this post. If 2 or 3 don't show, the meeting goes on. We're not asking for a contract review. We're really looking to create a booster team, kind of like high school spirit here. We're looking for people to boost it. And as a litmus test for how much are people willing to pay with a temporary assessed valuation on their personal property. Because, and I'll stop here, I don't want to belabor this, but Spur Cross Ranch was a very different time. And the people who voted for it then probably were more inclined to use it than on this particular issue. And we have a gentrified and a little bit rarefied population here in the community that's being asked, are they willing to tax themselves to pay for this preservation? And the answer probably would be affirmative if we have a credible relationship between the town's skin in the game and their personal property skin in the game. And I think that's the value of this committee, is to come back with recommendations from where they sit. So I belabored the point, but I'm filibustering, hoping that I can create some staff consideration of the larger group and council consideration that sometimes you can't have too much of a good thing. And public volunteerism is something that we continue to need to nurture, I think. So thank you.
Mayor. Grady, how many people were on the ad hoc committee for Morningstar, please?
We had, maybe Luke can help me, but we had, I thought, 7, and we had some alternates, but I might have my number off on that. Luke, do you recall?
The council appointed 7 members and 2 alternates, and we actually had to use an alternate because one of the appointed members, once we determined the schedule of all the meetings, which was done at the first order of business after electing a chair and vice chair, one member was unable to make the meeting time, so we were able to call up an alternate to serve that term.
Thank you.
So if I may, Councilmember Friedman and also Councilmember Augerton. So during that process, those were very transparent. The meetings were open to the public. People did attend that were not necessarily part of the committee. And that's what we're trying to do here. So the public will have an opportunity. We'll have an item on the agenda for public comment. And they'll be able to, the chair will be able to call on, the public if they want to speak, so forth. It's not a closed process. No, in fact, it'll be held in this council chamber.
If I may continue. So 7 versus 9 committee members, I've got a few points I want to make. First of all, 9 people on the committee is absolutely convoluting the final equation, I feel. It makes it more difficult to reach a conclusion or a conclusion of options. As the old saying goes, too many cooks spoil the broth. 2, as well, less people would result in greater efficiency, accountability, and speed of decision-making. Last, and we also mentioned, by the way, that there would be alternates on this, so there wouldn't be like people were missing. We'd have people to fill in. Last, and this was brought up a minute ago in a roundabout way. There's a reason that most cities and towns have 7 or less people elected as council members and mayor. It keeps things tighter and creates an opportunity to convolute decisions, not convolute decisions. Okay, in Maricopa County, I'm going to point this out. There is comprised of 24 cities and towns, with the exception of Phoenix, who has 9 people on their council, and they're also mega big. And Chandler has 5. I don't know why. The other 22 cities all have 7 people on their councils, and it works as well. It worked pretty well with the Morningstar Committee. They got that done brilliantly. I mean, the people who are not going to be put on this committee can still contribute. Why not? I mean, they can be involved. They can show up at these meetings. They can have discussions with those people who get selected. So that's basically what I have to say about 7, and I'm pushing for 7 hard.
So I'm going to be the contrarian. We have 17 qualified residents. Why not let all 17 of them serve? We've been saying we want to expand the amount of people who volunteer for things in this town. Why limit to 5, 7, 9? Why don't we let everybody who wants to participate in this participate? I don't see it as a big deal. I've herded cats before. I'm pretty sure that Grady's herded cats before, and I'm pretty sure that Luke has done it too. So I don't see a problem with having all 17 people who volunteered on this committee. I just think we shouldn't be limiting. We should be expanding the opportunity for people in this town to volunteer. And I think this is a great opportunity. I don't think there's anything that's so pressing that you couldn't have a meeting with 17 people. That means you'd have 9 or 8 that would, 9 that would have to show up for quorum. If you got 17 people, getting 9 people into a meeting room is not a big deal. Just my thoughts.
Tom?
Yeah. Tom, firstly, thank you for the work that you did in incorporating Cave Creek and in the work on Spur Cross. That's truly appreciated. But I agree with Joe. There's a reason that we have important bodies, such as you see here, that are limited to 7 people. I think that's a sweet spot. I think you can make good decisions. We've got a lot of really excellent candidates. I think many of them are out here today, people that I know have dedicated themselves to the community. Some of you probably will not be chosen. That's unfortunate. But I also know that I see people out there who are really talented, powerful people who have the community interest in mind. But the point that I want to make is I think there's a sweet spot in terms of making decisions. And I think 7 is a really sweet spot.
Me? Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to go with, let anybody volunteer who wants to volunteer. I think that it's an honor to have this many people who are interested in participating in open government, and that we should welcome you all. And if you don't want to come because you think there's too many of you, then you don't have to participate. That's your choice. But I think there's no way for me to decide 7 people out of this list. I don't know all of you. I know some of you. I also think it's important to have new faces from people who have not volunteered before. So I'm going for the gusto here. I think anybody who wants to be on this committee should be. I'd like to hear, if that's legitimate, from some of the people who have volunteered, who are in the audience, if you think it's too unwieldy. That matters to me to hear your opinion. I also have one last thing to say, which, I hate to beat a dead horse, but when I worked in government, we hired facilitators to organize and coordinate the meetings. If our town manager doesn't think that he's able to manage 15 people, let's, and it's no offense, Grady, it's a lot of people and a lot of opinions. So there are people who are trained and qualified to lead these kinds of discussions. And I think that we can easily hire somebody to do the job.
I agree.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a motion. And that motion, I have, Grady's got to lead this, and so I think he deserves a vote on what he thinks will work. I mean, why not have everybody in town on it? So there's an upper limit somewhere. So I want to make a motion, which is the high end. I'll make a motion that we have a committee of 9 members, and I'm looking for a second. And we'll vote on this, and if we don't, then we'll vote on another until we get to an answer. So is there a second? Okay. I think we've heard everybody's comments, so we're ready to vote? Okay, let's take a roll call on a 9-member committee. Please, Teresa?
Councilmember Algerton,
No.
Driscoll,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedman,
No.
Councilmember McGuire,
No.
Councilmember Rhodes,
No.
Vice Mayor Royer,
No.
Mayor Morris.
Yes, okay, so it fails 5-2. All right, I'm looking for another motion.
I move to have 17 on the committee. There was 17 qualified residents of Cave Creek, and I just think that's a smart thing to do.
So just for clarification,
17
it does not include the 2 non-residents.
does not include the 2 non-residents. I don't think they should have a vote in how we do business.
Why do you say that?
They're not going to be paying the taxes on it.
What about the residents who have lived in town maybe a year and don't really understand the town because they haven't paid their dues and put their time in yet? That's one thing I think.
They're not residents of the
Yeah,
town.
I get that, but still, it was
No.
open to anybody.
Okay,
I
we're
motion
at-
for the
we're at
17
the motion,
residents.
and we're looking for a second.
Second.
Okay, so now we have discussion. So,
Point of clarification.
Yep.
One of the applicants was Steve Lamar. Has he completed his term on the planning commission?
No, Steve Lamar is an acting member of the planning commission. He was just appointed by council last December. So he's just beginning a new term.
Because I do have a concern that we take anyone who would be on council or planning commission and have them also participate on the task force.
Okay, I amend it to 16, and nobody's currently serving on the commission.
quick. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so we're ready for comments. We have comments on the 16 people here, excluding the current sitting planning commission.
You're very generous to look in my direction. Go ahead, Joe. Why don't you go first?
Mine will be brief. Steve Lamar, this isn't a conflict of interest, in my opinion. I just want to say Steve Lamar has lived here over 40 years. He's a retired attorney who probably understands Cave Creek and its dynamics better than anyone else who may be involved in this. He's been here since incorporation and was a part of that. He's had a major impact on Enquire and Spur Cross. He's a former councilman. He's currently on the planning commission. I think we should not rule out Steve Lamar.
I agree.
Oh, okay. Why do you think it's a conflict?
Well, I think it's consistent with what we did with the Morningstar Task Force. And because again, there were sitting council members and planning commission members who wanted to be on that task force and they were excluded. So it's consistent with that. And it also, anyone who's on council and on the planning commission has lots of input into the town's decision. This is a citizens advisory task force. And so we want new faces and new voices to participate and to bring them along. So again, I work great with Steve. He is a wealth of information. I have tremendous respect for him, but he has a role currently in our government and our processes.
Okay, any other comments?
I just would speak in support of the motion. I think it's something that you're going to be pleased with the energy level, the variety of remarks, and the fact that nobody goes home a loser. Anybody who wants to volunteer gets a chance to be recognized.
Well, Tom has a point, because when we have as many outstanding candidates as we've got here, the biggest problem I have with all these things, and they happen all the time, is there are people who deserve and who can do the job, and we exclude them. And that's a hard thing to tell somebody who's taken the time, is willing to put the time in on something as important as this. So I echo all the comments here. All right, we have a motion and we have a second and we've had comments. So you want to let's take a roll call, please.
The
Teresa.
motion is
16 people.
16 people, excluding the current sitting
Excluding,
planning commission.
excluding the current planning commissioner.
Councilmember Algerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Driscoll,
Yes,
Councilmember Friedman,
No.
Councilmember McGuire,
no.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rory.
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
I'm gonna say no, I'm gonna support staff, but so my motion does carry 4-3, so it's 16 people. Yeah. We're good. So everybody,
Thanks, thanks, Mayor and Council. Luke and I will follow up with the appointees and communicate with them, and coordinate with them on meeting schedules. Thank you for having the discussion and giving due consideration to what we were requesting. We're fine and we'll make this work.
I think we need to help them with a facilitator for this, so we might want to check in with that.
How do you
Just
break a tie of 8-8?
negotiate.
Bill.
it's an advisory committee with no power to actually implement. It's an advisory.
It has to
committee,
come
so they're
back to
not
the council.
requesting any action other than they can just say it's an 8-8 tie, this one or this one. So. Okay, so,
Mayor Morris, will a chairperson be appointed by this
well,
committee?
we're gonna let the town manager make a decision somewhere. He's
Okay.
gotta run this thing, so I'm sure he'd love all the micromanagement he can get.
Want anybody to speak?
I do think that if he needs to hire a facilitator, we ought to.
Yeah.
Support him. That's
He's-
right.
He's got money, he can do that, yeah. Okay, so the 17 people who are on it, I guess they're gonna follow up with you and let you know when, where, and how, and good luck, and it's important work. This is really started in 2008. It's sat for 15 years until this council got the ball moving. So there's been a ton of work, negotiations, appraisals and things beforehand. And there's been work on the finance area of what it takes to do it, but it's going to take a vote, and you've got some really important work to do because it's a great opportunity for the town. So thank you for your service in advance, and we look forward to a good product.
Thank you. Thank you for offering.
Okay, we're on the presentation of the Fire EMS quarterly report.
Surprises. Surprises.
I couldn't. vote. I couldn't vote. I was at, I was at
Yeah.
9. So.
Actually, I probably should have voted yes on tonight.
You can do that. That's he's.
Yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, fellas. Yeah.
Are we okay?
I was just telling Brian during the meeting that my best friend since, I think, fourth grade, his son was picked up a major injury rollover on Carefree Highway. And they absolutely rave about Daisy Mountain. In fact, one of the EMTs that treated him actually came to the hospital. He was in intensive care for 10 days, something like that. So, Mr. Tobin, you're doing good out there.
Thank you. It's my group. They make me proud every day. Pretty
Go
easy,
ahead.
pretty easy to be the fire chief in Daisy Mountain Fire and Medical, I'll tell you that.
Well, Mayor and Council, Chief Tobin and I are pleased to be here to give you, you said quarterly report, which it is, but it's also the annual reports, the fiscal year report, end of year. So we track stuff both fiscally and calendar year because of the way we started up. It was kind of a little bit weird. But so this is also a fourth quarter report. We'll kind of touch on both as we go through this pretty quickly. And if there's anything that any questions you have, just please let us know. The first slide, again, is just the numbers for the last quarter. April, May, and June, it shows you what percentage are medical, what percentage are fire, what percentage are special ops, and then it tells you the year to date, what percentages you have. And so those are just the basic details and numbers. And you can see how many times our unit responded, and some months are busier than others, the 80 calls in April versus 70 calls in June. And then the important part that we kind of gloss over a lot is the training. And I'm just thrilled with Chief Tobin and his crew and what they're doing for training. They got their hands full right now, training 15 new people for the new fire station that's going up, which we can talk about. And he can talk about that a little bit, but they've got an academy just getting ready to go through. But if you just look at the total number of hours and the different items that they train on, it just shows that the folks here are doing a tremendous job, and they're well, that's what you want. You want people to show up quickly, and you want people to show up that are trained. And that's what you're getting. That's what we try to show you with the reports here. This is a comparison of the quarter, the fourth quarter versus the year. And so we had a few more service calls in the fourth quarter than we average per year, but you can see it's still almost 75%, 72% of our calls are medical calls. We focused on that a little bit last time. We are a little bit of an older community, and we have a lot of visitors, and that's not that much different from almost any other department, to tell you the truth. Phoenix or Scottsdale or Mesa, the bulk of their calls are emergency medical calls also now, since the fire departments got into that business here over the last decade or so, or more than that maybe, huh?
75, right?
Yeah. This is the comparison I was talking about between the calendar year and the fiscal year. But what you can see now is we've become very consistent. 753, 778, 779, 776 calls per year. So we're running right in within 10 calls or so a year consistently. It changes a little bit each year, whether it's more medical or more fires or more special duties and service calls, more special operations calls, but the total number of calls have been very, very consistent. And again, we're just pleased with how they're happening. If you have any questions on these as we go through it, just let me know. This is the fourth quarter noteworthy activities. We try to do this every quarter and let you know. The opioid grant program is going very well, working with the Caring Corps in the school district. We had those preparedness meetings for the wildlands early on in April. We had the meetings for the community here. We had in also the Firewise submittals and approvals. I'll talk about that just a little bit. We have both Galloway Ridge and Desert Enclave were approved for Firewise communities. That gives us 4 that have been approved in the town, and we have 1 more that's currently been submitted to the national and state folks to review. So the communities themselves are taking it upon themselves to do this. The budgets were a big deal this year because, as you know, we coming into the fiscal 25-26 years, we are now assisting with Daisy Mountain and have our agreement that we'll pay for the station in Cave Creek and half of the operating costs and the startup costs for the station that's going in at 24th and Cloud. And just to be clear on that, the Daisy Mountain Fire District is paying for the capital for that. They are building the station, they're paying for the capital. We're paying for the startup, some of the startup and the academies and things like that, and the folks. The agreement is in 10 years, when they need a new fire engine, the town will be buying the second fire engine when it has to be replaced in about 10 years. Same with the brush truck and the tender, I think. So the agreement is that they spotted it all up front, and the town will do their part in a little bit, but it gives you time to budget for it. And as Grady was talked about, maybe do a vehicle acquisition fund or something like that. So the budgets were a big deal, but they went through. Hopefully we answered all your questions during the budget time. And so then these are the kind of the larger calls for the fourth quarter. We didn't have that many fires. We had a couple fires, a couple barbecue fires, brush fires. I think the mayor, you had commented on, it didn't seem like we've had as many large wildland fires or as many. And I'll just tell you, if you look at the numbers, we've had as many calls as we usually get. We just don't have the impact or that we've had in the past. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is the training of the guys and the gals that Chief Tobin provides us. Second is we've talked about this in the past, we've changed our response guidelines in the summer, so you're getting a lot more resources much quicker. So a 1 acre fire stays at a 1.5 acre fire versus a 1 acre fire now becomes a 15 or 20 acre fire that you've seen in the past. And so that's where it's.
Question for you real quick. I see that you've got a trail rescue here on 5-3 at Spur Cross. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
1 on 5-3 on Spur Cross. They say trail rescue EMS, and I'll talk about that in just a second on another slide. I'll give you a number that we have for the year. And what we're finding is if it's actually a trail rescue like we had on Saturday, like their letter that I left on the dais today, then that takes a lot more resources and assistance from the region to come and assist with that. But a lot of times we're getting calls for a heat incident, and it's somebody that just came off the trail at the Spur Cross Trailhead or at the Tom's, no, it's not Tom's Thumb, it's the other one. Yeah, but they just come off, and so then that just turns out on the EMS. So these are trail rescues or EMSs from people that have gone out. So we can talk about those. And then the automatic aid responses, if you recall, we have gone to Scottsdale quite a bit this year for some of those bigger fires for the year that they had over there. But the flip side of that is they come to us when we have the major incidents here and assist us. This is for again, the fiscal year, the 24-25 accomplishments. The town completed the process of getting the resources and activities. The station is completed. It was opened in December. The engine and the new tanker were bought. All of that was paid for with the last budget. So you have no capital for fire going forward until we start replacing vehicles. So that is all done. It's all been paid for already, and it's all completed. The construction was done. Chief, if you want to talk about your construction of the new station on number 144 on Cloud and 24th.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Mayor, council members, I'm pleased to report that the fire station 144-2402 East Cloud is only 2 months ahead of schedule and only under budget. So from a fire chief's perspective, I'll take all the credit for that, even though I don't deserve it all, but I'll take it when I can get it. So it is moving along at quite a click, to say the least. They just tiled it this week, so the roof has been tiled. The apparatus front, it's just coming along so fast. It's hard to really explain all of that, except that the superintendent on site is saying that whenever he needs a sub, the sub shows up the next day, which some of us may seem like you would think that that's the way it's supposed to work, but it doesn't always happen that way in construction. But it has with the Wilming company that is our contractor there. When they're ready for the next sub to come in, they show up the next day and they start working. It's like a bunch of little bees operating around that place. Today, they moved a power pole that was necessary for access into the parking lot. So every week they make a tremendous amount of progress. So to that point, we hired 15 new firefighters, started 3 weeks ago. That's how long it takes for us to onboard and get firefighters ready. It takes 15 firefighters for one fire truck, 12 people, 24 hours, 4 people, 24 hours a day. It takes about 15 people for that. So they started 3 weeks ago. They will go to the Phoenix Fire Academy a week from Friday and start the regional academy experience there. That takes about 14 weeks. They graduate on January 9th. On January 10th at 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll all get more information about this. We will have a grand opening of that fire station on 24th Street in Cloud. You will all be invited. Ribbon cutting, speeches, acknowledgements, a community event with kids, families, residents, anybody that wants to come, tours of the fire station will all be done on the 10th of January at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And on the 13th of January, the full-time crew will report to duty at that station. So that's Tuesday, January 13th. So remember, the folks graduate on Friday. They have their days off. They go back, they go to a shift schedule. The first day of that shift schedule is Tuesday, January 13th, and we'll start running emergency calls out of that station January 13th, 2026. So it's exciting for all of us to be moving into this next phase of our department and serving both West Creek, Cave Creek, and East Desert Hills out of Station 144, amongst other areas.
So we're pleased, like we said, that both stations now have been built faster and at or under budget. So that hasn't happened in the valley in quite a while, but it happened with Daisy Mountain and it happened here in Cave Creek. So we're both very proud of what's going on with that. This is a list of what some of the major accomplishments, and I want to highlight just a couple of you. We talked about EMS services. These guys were just noticed, Daisy Mountain was just noticed again that they are on the gold honor roll for the American Heart Association, and they're the only fire department in America, the only fire department in Arizona, excuse me, that received the gold level certifications for both cardiac and their documentation. So we're very proud of that. I'll show you the certificate for that here coming up, but that doesn't happen by happenstance. Nobody else in Arizona has gotten that. It just shows that even on EMS calls, as the mayor was talking about a little bit earlier, the Daisy Mountain folks that are serving our community are doing an excellent job, and very proud of that. Increased emergency response and coordination. We worked very closely with the Department of Forestry and Farm Management this year. And then we even had tabletop events. We had 2 tabletop planning for fires in the area. What's going to happen, who's going to do what. And we did all that preseason, and we had the regional meeting with them. And then the community outreach safety events. And then we've talked about these as we've gone along, and town-sponsored brush cleanup days. We did 2 this year, but we've done 10 events total, and we've collected over 216 tons of brush and materials from our residents in town that we've taken to the dump. So we do 2 of those each year. We do them in the spring. We try to coordinate that with the rodeos and the other stuff that's happening in the spring. So we have to, those days move around a little bit. Usually it's February and March or April. But our people are responding. And the mayor, you were asking me about why our wildland fires seem to be less. And this is one of the reasons, because the people are listening to us and they're paying attention and they're helping us by doing the stuff that they can do with that. And then we'll do free home inspections for them if they want. And then again, I want to touch on the agreements we have with Cave Creek Community Unified School District and with Caring Corps. And we did a large community event about a month ago now, maybe at the church, and we're going to do more of them, and asking for volunteers like you were today, asking for volunteers to help us with the outreach programs. And Mayor, you showed up at that and got to speak a little bit, you and Mayor Crane. And again, I was very pleased and very amazed at how many people came to that, just with an open invitation. Do you want to help talk about, what we can do to help our elderly residents into town? So that worked out very well. These are just the certificates from our new Firewise communities, both for Desert Enclave and for Galloway Ridge. We just got them. The communities have the certificates, and I actually got the signs for their communities today, this week. And so I've already called them and said, we can get your signs to you. Other accomplishments, some bigger accomplishments that we did. I don't want to talk about all of them, but Chief Tobin, as I think I brought up at one of the quarterly events, was awarded the 2024 Arizona Fire Chiefs Lifetime Achievement Award for what he's done in his entire career. And he's brought all of his knowledge. He's brought his knowledge and skills to us, and it just has helped us tremendously as we've gone through this partnership with these guys.
The rodeo and the rodeos, these guys, Daisy Mountain does the standbys. All the events that we have for those, we've asked that they use the Daisy Mountain crews because we know what kind of service they're going to get and the kind of professionalism. So they've done all of that with us. Last year I mentioned we assisted Scottsdale with 2 separate second alarm brush fires that they had out by the Scottsdale Ranch and the gated community out there. Those were the biggest ones in the valley last year. And our crews assisted with that. And I don't believe we lost any houses in that event.
No.
No, all houses were saved again, which is an amazing, given what's happened here recently. And then you can read through and see some of the major incidents that we had. And then I did go through our incident reports. I get every report that the crews run on. And so last year alone, just in the last fiscal year, we had 18 trail and heat rescues. Councilman Friedman, going to your question earlier, how often are we doing this? We've had 18 of them. They are usually concentrated in the spring and summer. I've been driving out to Spurcross parking lot at lunch when it's 115 to see if people were out there. And about a third of the time, there's still cars in the parking lot from people that are out hiking at lunchtime when it's 115, which is not a good idea. I'm trying to get in trouble. I haven't talked to Grady yet. Maybe I start leaving notes on their windshields, but not a good idea. We'll see. And then the other is the kind of special events that goes into that is the gas leaks and hazardous materials. And there's 11 times that occurred. We had gas leaks, gas lines broke, or hazardous materials incidents. And Chief, I think on 144, Daisy Mountain, and you can talk about it a little bit more if you'd like. Daisy Mountain now has a special operations team for these types of incidents that runs for the North Valley. So,
Yes. So we have what's called a technical rescue and a hazardous materials team. So I've talked to you at previous council meetings about how we've sent our members to these different training programs that last 4 to 6 weeks on each one. But we have on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a minimum of 3, our maximum of 4, what we call BITECs. In other words, they do both. They're both hazmat and technical rescue technicians. They will be operating on our heavy rescue unit that will be stationed at the new station at 24th Street and Cloud. It will be Heavy Rescue 144, and it is a enormous truck, double rear axle, heavy rescue like you've seen back in Chicago and New York. We use them differently here, but there are technical guys that do everything you can imagine. And because of the new fire station, we're moving them south to that location, and it's going to be more of a deployable regional asset. So it'll cover a lot of the north part of Phoenix, certainly Cave Creek, my whole fire district. And of course, we respond up to I-17. So we have a lot of work that we do on the interstate as well. So that unit will be fully functional out of that station on the 13th of January.
And I think that we've responded to gas leaks and gas main breaks up in Desert Mountain, even from North Scottsdale. That's part of the regional response.
Yeah.
And so whichever closest crew is available is the crew that goes.
Yeah, because on the gas leaks, if it's if it's a Southwest, if it's a construction company that ruptures a gas line or an actual, it takes more than just 4 firefighters to manage that incident because of the risks associated with it. So part of the automatic aid system is they'll get resources from other places. So Scottsdale has a hazmat team, Phoenix has many, we have one, and other communities also help respond to those to stabilize the incident, evacuate the community, and be support for Southwest Gas as they mitigate those.
And then again, the new fire stations, I just put some pictures up. We have our fire station, which has been up and operating. And Chief Tobin sent me these pictures of his fire station, which is coming up. The center one is what it's going to look like when it's completed, which is going to be very shortly here. So if you haven't driven by it, drive by it and take a look at it. It's really pretty impressive.
Yeah, so we have 4 because we have 2.2 acres that we were able to develop for our property.
Yeah, we had less than an acre.
As opposed to what you had. And we know that we have to park stuff under the roof. So we added 4, and they're really big parking spots under there. So they're long enough to park a ladder truck in. So.
And we want to thank you for giving us 3, because we
Yeah.
didn't think we could get 3 on
Yeah,
our site. to
3
tell
is
you the truth.
impressive.
And then these are just some of the stuff we've already talked about, the Daisy Mountain Fire and Medical Award. Chief Tobin, look how photographic he is and is accepting his award last year. And then I'm still really proud of the new vehicles we got. The tender we managed to get for under budget, even though we budgeted it 4 years ago now, we still got a brand new tender that meets all of our needs. And our engine has come in, and so there's, you see they're labeled for Cave Creek Fire. And we like them to do that, and we're going to start doing some school stuff with them so that the kids in school know that we have Cave Creek Fire. That's coming up. Additional comments or questions, or we'll be happy to answer anything that you have for us. And hopefully we didn't take too long, but there's a lot to cover when you're doing an annual report. So
Keep up the good work.
please.
Any other questions, comments, council?
Whatever you've done to prevent fires this year, keep doing it.
Yeah, right.
I'll call a little bit of that Mother Nature, right? Humidity, rain is
I
very
don't care.
helpful.
Keep doing
I
it.
know, I don't either. But again, I've mentioned, I think, when I was here previously, we manage that response, the brush staffing, and you pay me to make sure that we manage that appropriately. So when we don't have red flag days, which the Department of Forestry and Forest Management declares, which are hot, dry, windy days, then we don't upstaff on those days. It works. It's the science behind it. So I think we can all be happy that we didn't have to use too many of those resources this year. Yeah. Throughout the system, not just here. Yeah.
Thank you. We're very lucky to have such a competent team. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, next and last on the agenda is presentation of the fiscal year 2025 fourth quarter finance report. And Sherry joins us again.
And I am joined by Bridget Black, our accounting.
Oh, welcome, Bridget.
So first off, I want to apologize for my voice. About 3 weeks ago, it was almost completely gone. It's dramatically improved, but I'm still not fully there.
Well, maybe it's you that got Grady sick. He's
Thanks. I don't think so.
yeah, he's
I'm not contagious, so I have significant allergies. I basically say I'm allergic to Arizona.
You can't go anywhere.
Oh, no, I love being here. It's just a shame that I'm allergic. So we have the fourth quarter finance report for the fiscal year 25, and so our fiscal year ends June 30. This is pre-completion of all the year-end accruals. There's a lot of things that go into that process to do all those accrual entries. And we still, I want to say maybe not the last AP run, but the one before, we're still getting invoices for last year. So it takes a while even just to get all the invoices in that we need before we even have all of our expenditures, much less all the other accruals that we need to do. So this is pre having all those year-end accruals in. Why is that not moving? So we're going to talk about some of the projects that finance has been working on. Then we'll go into the financial status report and the investment report, and then we'll do a review of where we're at on our performance measures. There we go. So I'm going to turn it over to Bridget to talk about some of the projects. And we're not going to cover everyone. We're just going to hit some highlights.
So one of the projects we've completed is the accountant position was filled. The accountant position is currently training with the payroll and accounts payable, as well as their normal duties. And let's see, Council of Financial Policies for fund balance, fiscal planning, budget, debt management. We have reviewed and revised all of the approved Council of Financial Policies. Some more of the projects completed for fiscal year 25 is the fiscal year 2026 budget was adopted during the fourth quarter, and we do this annually. It usually takes about 6 months or more. We closed our safety deposit box. We had council revise the authorized signers on the safety deposit box so we could access the box and close it. Once we opened the box, we discovered it contained Laserfiche and backup tapes. Many of these items were past the required retention dates and needed to be destroyed. The remainder do not require a safety box. In-process projects, banking services, including integration with SmartGov. So we've updated our state treasurer distributions to deposit to Wells Fargo. We implemented check scanning for payments received in office. And we have the wire capability set up to be payable to the vendors. Remaining services are moving along, and we hope to have more implemented in the near future. And Sherry will cover utility rate and user fee studies.
So we have been in process on the utility rate study. It's taken a little bit of time to make sure that we had all the right information to the consultants to be able to do the calculations that they need. We're trying to do a real thorough, making sure that we're capturing and covering everything that we can. So I need to touch base with them again on where they're at and when they feel comfortable with having be ready for another work session to go over what they've got. So the most recent was a target of thinking that we would probably have rates that would be effective February 1. I'm hoping that they'll say they can still stay on that timeline, but we'll see where they're at with things and see if that needs to be pushed. But so it's a big project, a lot going on there.
Another in-process project was we transitioned to ASMAT for our health benefits. And that's been a lot of work getting everything reconciled, which will still be ongoing until we finish reconciling everything. Hopefully it'll be implemented fully in the near future. And then
Can I ask a question on that? How did our employees react or respond to the transition? Has it happened yet?
It's happened.
Yeah, I don't know if we've
Oh.
heard much in finance, but
Carla can.
Carla
Yeah,
could
yeah.
probably tell you how they've reacted.
Okay.
A little shorter than this. Okay. So the feedback that I've received from employees initially was mixed, fear of change. What I'm hearing back now is they are elated at their premiums because the employee premiums saw a decrease, especially for the family plans. And they were also delighted at having the options for choices. So we have a PPO and then we still have the high deductible health plan available for employees. The high deductible health plan did see a decrease in what the town was contributing towards the HSA, but overall, again, the employees have been really receptive and supportive.
Very good. I was hoping so.
Sherry.
So on here, one of the things that is in process is looking at potential for increasing bed tax rate and the hotel sales tax rate. I've been working with the Arizona League and expecting to bring some information to you on the September 16th meeting. With these taxes, so the bed tax is currently at 4%. The hotel sales tax portion is at 3%, and our main base rate is the 3% for retail and all those other categories. The statute says that we can exceed whatever the base retail rate is, that 3%, by 2% without having the restrictions put on it. It would be treated no different than the way the rates are right now. So the 4% bed tax can go up to 5%, and the hotel sales tax portion can go from the 3% to 5%. Based off of some of the estimations I did during the budget process, each 1% brings us about $57,000. The 3%, so 1% addition on bed tax, 2% addition on the hotel sales tax. So that total would be about $170,000. Another thing to note is it's very, very rare that you would see like a resident paying a hotel tax in the place where they do. I mean, some people do staycations, but most often it's going to be paid by visitors, not the residents. So that is something that we're looking at because it would put us in that category to where it's not restricted. If we go over the 5%, then there's all sorts of things about the portion that's over the 5% has to go towards promotion of tourism, maintenance of tourism. And so we would be obligated in that manner.
I have a quick question. Okay. Is the new Focus on the Family Marriage Retreat considered a hotel, or will we get bed tax money from that?
So I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that, but if it's anything that is a stay under 30 days, then it's considered transient occupancy or short-term occupancy. And so if it's considered an occupancy in less than 30 days, then yeah, it could potentially have a requirement to pay those taxes.
Just as a side, I believe it's a nonprofit, so I don't believe we'll be getting that. But we can verify and get back that information back to you.
501c3s are exempt from bed tax.
Yeah.
Is that true, Bill?
I don't know that they are.
Oh.
I'll look. I'm gonna write it down.
Okay, very good.
I've
That
been
would be-
advised verbally that they will be taxed. There will be a tax.
I'll look. I think they are, but I'll look.
Okay.
It
that
it
would
can
be-
be also based off of how they're set up. So with nonprofits, they have like a core mission that is whatever that mission is, then that activity typically is not taxable. But if they're doing anything that is other business income that's not part of the core mission, those revenues typically would be taxed. So I don't know how that, I can't speak to this. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, my question is, do we have any influence on what is determined to be their core mission? Is that something that they define themselves?
Yeah, they define it themselves.
That's why I think it's a problem. We got to look at that. I'll call Sherry. 'Cause I
Thank
think that
you.
is what is their core mission and how can they avoid taxes by calling it their core mission? Let me get back to Sherry.
Okay. Any other questions on bed tax?
Can we find out how many beds there are there so we would know how much that would generate?
18 rooms.
All right, just to do a little research, somebody, not necessarily Bill.
So some more in-process projects we have are administrative financial policies. And we've dealt with the council adopted policies and now are working on new administrative financial policies that we're drafting. And future projects. Sherry?
So I did want to mention, so we've talked about looking into a DMO designation for our tourism bureau. So so there has been at least a little bit of research done on that. To become a DMO, it does require that we have a dedicated tourism marketing budget, which in the budget process, we did set aside monies to be able to do some of that marketing. In order to participate in the Prop 302 program funding, which is specific to Maricopa County DMOs, then it requires that we have tourism marketing budget for fiscal year 25. I don't know what the fiscal year 26 numbers are yet. But at that point in time, it was at least 123,000. So that number that I mentioned previously of 170, about 170,000, if we increase the bed tax and the hotel sales tax. So that would be more than that. So if we wanted to use that money towards being able to have a budget as much as that, and then be able to get additional funding through the Prop 302 to be able to leverage our dollars to create a bigger program and be able to promote Cave Creek for tourism related activities, then that is a possibility.
So another future project is evaluating options for fuel card and discount programs. We're hoping to start this project once a procurement manager has started. Another future project is transitioning business licenses and short-term rental licenses to finance. So implementation of the banking services is key to efficiency in the finance department, and this will help us take on additional duties.
Any questions on any of the projects? Even if there was something that we didn't talk about?
Well, I have one. What's the difference between ClearGov and SmartGov?
So SmartGov is the permitting system and ClearGov is the budget, the new budget system that council approved June.
ClearGov, SmartGov.
Yes.
LaSalle.
Good enough
Yeah.
for government work.
Yes, everything's something gov.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving into financial status. So, this is through the quarter, 4, but this is prior to the year-end accrual. So this is cash basis numbers here that are here, that I'm presenting by fund. This includes about 90% of the taxes for the month of May and none of the June taxes, because we don't actually start receiving any of the June taxes until July. So that's about 11 months. So that's about 92% of the year. If you look, and I can turn on the, whoops. Apparently I can't. Why am I not being able to do a right click? Did it earlier. Oops. I'm sorry. I'm fumbling around with this. I'm not getting it. So if you look at, so the first column is what the fiscal year 25 budget was, the amount through quarter 4 for revenues, and then you look at percentage of budget. So 11 months, as I said, is about 92% of the year, and we're at 102% of the budget at that point in time already. So I did do some looking at accruals and anticipation of those, and I think we'll be really close to what I had estimated during the budget process for fiscal year 26. We are at 102% of the budget, even with having the residential rental tax go away. So that's the long-term rentals. So I mentioned on the transient occupancy tax, the bed tax, that's 30 days or less. This is more than 30 days. So that ended. And we also, when you look at the comparison between quarter 4 for fiscal year 25 compared to the quarter 4 pre-year-end accruals for fiscal year 24, you'll see a little bit of variance there in the percentages, and that's because of some corrections that we had made in the allocations between the different funds. This slide here, so we have an IGA with the City of Phoenix to use their system that they had created where they get information from ADOR and upload it in the system, and you can run reports based off of the different categories. And so based off of that, I was able to run a report and look at more of the accrual basis. So I'm looking at for fiscal year 25, and still it's not completely finalized or audited, but I think we're going to be really close to this 14.6 million for the year compared to the prior year was 13.1. So an increase of about 1.4 million or 11%. And when you look at the top row, you see construction went up 84%. So that's where the biggest part of this change. So I know there's talk of like, oh, construction is going to be slowing down, that revenue that we get from construction will start to diminish. Well, it hadn't really diminished during fiscal year 25. So it's we know it will eventually slow down, but not yet. When you look at some of the other categories here, so you might be a little alarmed looking at restaurant and bars going down 4%, and some of the other changes there. The way that ADOR, Arizona Department of Revenue, when they do the sales tax collection. So for the month of June, the taxes weren't actually due until the end of July. So some people are really on it and they pay early, and you can start getting some of your June taxes during the early part of July. But not everybody even pays by the end of July, and ADOR has their own process to just do like not a thorough review, but at least a check on making sure things look okay on the forms before they say, okay, yeah, I'm putting this in and I'm accepting this. And so we don't actually get everything for June. It's about the middle of August before we get all the June revenue. So there's quite a long lag there in that time frame. So when they're doing their processing, they have a point in time where they say, okay, that's it. We're done. We're not putting anything more into that GL period that represents June taxes. There will be people who are still delinquent. And I want to advance to the next slide here to show you. So just for the Q4 only, so just for the April, May, June, it was total of about 3.4 million. And so I've got 4 columns there of like every one of the tax periods that are being hit all the way back to 1990 that they're still doing adjustments. It is virtually impossible to get to a point to where you could say, okay, I'm going to leave the books open until I know that this particular month is totally complete. It's just not going to happen. So you're going to have all these different things, and you can see like for tax period 2022, tax period 2023, and there's a few other smaller ones, but those are some of the bigger negative numbers that you see there. I did take a look at some of the negatives, and there's things where sometimes they're saying I reported incorrectly and I'm owed a refund. Sometimes they make a mistake, report to the wrong jurisdiction, and then it needs to be corrected and moved to the correct jurisdiction. It's sometimes a little surprising that businesses think, oh, my postal address is Cave Creek, but they're not in the town limits of Cave Creek, so they don't pay Cave Creek TPT tax because they're not in our town limits, but they did. And then it has to be reversed and given to the right entity or refunded if they weren't in another municipality. So there's all sorts of things that can happen in these adjustments. This is the comparison. I had this comparison I've added on the last quarter here for you. This is without construction because construction really skews the numbers, but this helps you see some of the seasonality. And so for the last quarter, so April, there was a fairly big spike there in 23, but pretty level for the other years there. May is somewhat level and actually a little bit higher for fiscal year 25, but you can see that decrease for June. And that's because some of those adjustments that ADOR was doing hit in June. So without those adjustments, it would have probably been a little bit more on the trend that it was on at that point in time. So I wouldn't say it's something to like be highly concerned about. It's part of just what happens of these adjustments that need to be done. Looking at the revenues in total, not just the TPT revenues. So I'm looking at through the quarter. So this is the cash basis information and compared to budget. So at 81% of budget without all of the accruals in, and the quarter for the previous year, Q4, actually about 2% below. So for the special revenue funds, when you look at compared to budget, so budget was about 6.1 million, the through Q4 about 2.7 million, but there was a $3 million placeholder of, well, just in case we get some grants, we want to be able to have the budget capacity. And so you put a placeholder on the revenue side and on the expenditure side that we have that capacity if we get a large grant to spend that. So that's why we're so much under budget there. Because that did not materialize. The Cave Creek water is only at 66% of the budget. Part of that is some of the significant grant funding that is not in those numbers. Capacity fees are typically not received on a consistent basis. We treat them as one-time revenues because they can vary quite a bit from year to year, and they're only at 36% of what was budgeted. So it was budgeted pretty high. In my mind, of an estimate. for fiscal year 25. The usage fees, however, were at 90% of the budget. Again, we had conversations about how the budget numbers were being overinflated because the estimates were being calculated incorrectly. So that is also below. When you look at compared to last year for Cave Creek Water, it's also 25% under last year. Really the biggest part there was 1.9 million of ARPA funding that was received in fiscal year 20 or spent in 24 and accrued and recognized in that year that was a one-time grant funding.
Could I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
The $2 million infrastructure grant, we haven't seen a penny of that.
No, but we have the final that yes, we're good to go. We were given the award through the congressional directed spending, but then they assign it to an agency and you have to go through all of this process. And so that was assigned to EPA and we did get the notice from EPA. It's like, we're all good. Everything's approved and awarded as far as they're considered.
Really? Do we have
So-
any expectation when we might see it?
The portion of the Phoenix Interconnect project, there's some costs that have been incurred so far. It wasn't all that significant that we could do draw down on, but more of it is later part of the project. And I think the project is scheduled to be through the end of next year.
I see. So we haven't really even requested reimbursement yet.
Yeah, we haven't requested any of the
But
reimbursements
But
yet.
we've been told that it's approved and we
Mhm.
can expect it.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes. So looking at the expenditure side, so this is looking at by the categories of operating versus capital. And so we're at, without all the year-end accruals completed, about 74% of the budget. The comparison to last year, so we're 32% ahead, but it's primarily capital because you can see on the operating line, it's only a 3%. So 3% is like inflationary. That's not all that significant. But the 130%, so capital and the capital includes, of course, the Phoenix Interconnect is a really large project. The water meter replacements was a big project, fire station, fire vehicles. We had a lot on the plate for the road projects and the skybox. So actually quite a lot accomplished as far as CIP is concerned. Looking at the expenditures by fund. So again, that increase really is reflective based off of the CIP projects. Within the general fund, that's where we had the fire station, fire vehicles, road projects, and skybox. And then in Cave Creek Water is where the Phoenix Interconnect and the water meter replacements are. Looking at comparison of fund balances. So again, this is prior to completion of the year-end accruals. The beginning balance for the year, so fiscal year 24 was audited, so those are beginning numbers there. And so that was about 38 million where we started. Right now where we're at without all the accruals in is about 35 million. And you'll notice a fairly significant deficit right now that's showing for Cave Creek Water. But as I said, it's pre-accruals. And so we have an accrual that we'll be booking for the receivable from WIFA on drawdowns for the Phoenix Interconnect project. Of the expenditures that are represented in this number here, there's about 5.6 million in receivable. So it would be a positive balance in the Cave Creek Water if that was there. And there's other accruals on the expenditure side for the Phoenix Interconnect that are not in there yet, but the total that we have requested and receivable from WIFA is 6.4 million. So quite
Do you
a,
expect the 35 million fund balance to go up? The number there will be better than what you're showing?
yes, so far. As far as CIP projects, so here's some highlights of the bigger projects. The Phoenix Interconnect, it was budgeted in fiscal year 25 at about 13.7 million. And so far, without all the accruals, it's at about 9.4. So it's still a pretty good chunk of that project has been done. The project to date is at about 12.8 million. The water meter replacements, so that was about 540,000 there. And that project is complete. The total project cost, including all the grant funding, ended up being about 1.2 million. And this is Cave Creek. There's still some work that needs to be done with water meter replacements in Desert Hills. The fire station, so well under budget for fiscal year 25, and I think that probably includes everything. I don't think we had much in the way of accruals. If there were, it's small. The total project cost is about 5.1. The fire engine, and this is in my mind such an incredible price, about 756,000 because of the cash prepayment that was done. We pay a lot more for a fire engine today. The fire tender truck, so that cost 436. The skybox is completed. That ended up being about 606,000. The road projects budget was about 3.2 through quarter four, about 2.2 million. And it was mostly done. There was some permanent striping and some final acceptance things on some of the projects pending, but mostly done there. And then there was budgeted for open space land acquisition about 1.5 million, and that's carried over to next year. In the debt management policy that Bridget had mentioned, that we did some revisions and council approved that. One of the requirements is that in the quarterly reports, we identify where we stand on our outstanding debt. So that's why we have added these couple of slides. So this is reflecting as of, and I did it as of July 1. So our payments are due July 1 and January 1. So I could do June 30, but I think you want to know, like, okay, but July 1's passed, where are we actually at? And so Cave Creek Water, there's outstanding of about 16.5 million on the debt there. And that does assume that the Phoenix Interconnect loan is fully drawn down. When we talked during the budget time, we think that there'll be a little bit left there that we could then repurpose to some additional projects. And Desert Hills Water, so there's about 2 million in debt outstanding, and wastewater, not quite 6 million there outstanding. And looking at future debt payments, so here you can see how much those payments would be. I did group for Cave Creek Water because it goes all the way out to 2053 because the Phoenix Interconnect was set up as a 30-year loan. So I grouped those in 5-year increments after 2030, which is why you see that spike in the numbers there. Cave Creek Water, after fiscal year 27, then you'll start seeing the current debt drop down, but we are talking about issuing more debt for projects in the fiscal year 26 budget and going forward. Desert Hills Water, so there, the WIFA loan portion would be paid off through after fiscal year 27 and private placement fiscal year 28, and then wastewater goes until fiscal year 29. So existing debt is getting fairly close to being paid off with, of course, the exclusion of the Phoenix Interconnect, but we are expecting to issue more debt. The quarterly investment report, so this is as of June. And so you'll notice here a line that is new compared to previous reports for the sweep account with Wells Fargo. That was one of the things we talked about when we asked council to approve the banking services. So you'll see there the sweep account. So they sweep the balance that's in the checking account. And so it goes into a much higher earnings, and that's at 4.2% on that sweep, which is very good. Compared to the state treasurer's pool at 4.3%. That's really good. And there is quite a large amount there in the sweep as of June 30. And that was because of the debt payments that needed to be paid on July 1. And so that was about $4 million of that that we had ended up using. You do see on the checking account side. So as Bridget talked about of some of the things that we've transitioned from BMO to Wells Fargo, there are still things that are going into BMO at this point in time. So there is money there too. Looking at the yields of where we're at. So definitely some increases there in the last quarter of our portfolio, which is the blue line compared to the benchmark of the 3-year treasury. The end of April is when we got the sweep account implemented. So there was a small portion of April that we got a boost from that, but for sure the May and June, the sweep account was a nice bump there. This is looking at the transactions for the quarter. So looking at the increase, adding the sweep account. We did do some withdrawals from the local government investment pool in order to be able to pay our debt and some of the significant construction invoices that we've been having. And then there was the net withdrawal and the earnings. So on LGIP, about 340,000 for the quarter, the sweep about 14,000 there. The net for the quarter is a reduction of 1.1, but I did mention that we have the receivable from WIFA. So some of those costs for the construction, the cash basis, we needed to be able to pay the vendors, but WIFA, the way it works is it's a reimbursement after the fact. So it's a big part of why those went down.
And our next slide is performance measurements. So in April, we were able to close the general ledger within 2 business days. And in May, we did it in 2 business days. But in June, we did it in 11. And that's because we had a new person in accounting and we were training her. So the GFOA award for the ACFR is in process. The GFOA award for the budget was awarded. Percentage of AP invoices paid within 30 days was 99% in April, 100% in May, and 98% in June. We're working with the department directors to have their invoices forwarded to finance instead of directly to them. And I think that'll help a lot. Percentage of utility accounts over 60 days is 5% April, May, and June. Investment return versus 3-year treasury, 3.95% versus 3.58% in April, 4.24% versus 3.87% in May, and then 4.04% versus 3.68% in June.
And that's what we have for you tonight. So if you have any other questions, we can take those.
How are you feeling about it, Sherry? Are you and your staff meeting your goals?
I would say we're juggling a lot of balls. Got a lot of plates spinning, a lot of balls in the air, and very small staff. And we went for about a year of not having the accountant position filled. And so trying to do all that work without a body there. And now we have somebody, but it is a long process of doing all the training. So trying to do all the training and still get work done and get a very, very long list of projects done. So we do feel a little bit like we're drowning in projects. So
Well, I have to say, I've seen more new projects. I mean, there must be 24 projects here that weren't, and I can't recall seeing any, maybe isolated one here or there, but you really got, you've got improvements written all over everything you do. So I want to congratulate you and your department, and we got a lot of confidence in you. And so
thank you.
We're glad you're here,
Thank you.
voice and all.
Yes, yes.
Both of you, all of you.
Yes.
Thank you, Bridget.
Yes. Yes. Bridget is amazing. I love working with her.
Oh, good.
So
Sherry's the best.
Rick asked for a raise. Anything else?
No.
Anything else?
I do want to just mention that the beds are going to be taxed.
Oh, good.
Good.
And do we know how many?
I think there, Luke said 16 or 18, so they
16
can
or
clarify,
18.
clarify at the next meeting.
Sherry, do that math real quick.
Well, we've completed our agenda, so by state law, this meeting is adjourned.
Very good.
Unanimous vote.